Hi guys, welcome back to episode 15 of Deep Dives in the Desert. And I'm very honored to have the lovely Brian Tseng with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with Deep Dives in the Desert. My first time on a show is especially an honor and a pleasure.
Yep, it's
We're
all pleasure.
excited to have you. We met you in Grafton at the Journey to Truth conference, Johnny and I. And we sat by you a couple of times and got to have a little bit of conversation. And your dog, Winnie, was always catching our
Impressive.
attention because right?
Very impressive.
She was
Winnie the
always,
Wonder Dog.
yes, she's adorable. And we got to kind of talk to you a little bit about that. And we found out that you were part of the Full Disclosure Now conference. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you, who you are, and how you came to find yourself in this space?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I have been a community organizer back in the San Francisco Bay Area from like 2003 to about 2011, doing a lot of volunteer medical advocacy, working with doctors, medical professionals, nurses, and a lot of mental health professionals to deal with a lot of government and corporate policies that allow for just the rating of medicine, where nonprofit hospitals are supposed to be charities and provide charity care, don't pay taxes, but then they go up in all sorts of neighborhoods, buy up all the hospitals in the region, transfer the wealthy patients and doctors and practices up to their ivory towers on the hill in the good neighborhoods, and then shut down the hospitals they bought up for pennies on the dollar anyway in the low income neighborhoods, and they don't pay taxes. And as those hospitals shut down, now the homeless and especially the mentally ill, they're getting pushed out of facilities that got closed. And then they end up on the streets and in the jails and prisons and into the county hospitals. And then the county supervisors say, oh, wait, we don't have any money for any care. It's like, well, wait a second. Yeah, then why don't you make these guys fulfill their charity nonprofit obligations or pay their taxes? And then that way you'll have money. Oh, we can't do that because Sutter Health or Kaiser or, whoever, they're what do you call it? Campaign contributors. And we need that extra $1 million in our war chest every year to make sure we get reelected when next election cycle appears, right? And that's unearthing that. I got inspired after the whole worldwide pandemic thing kicked in. We fled San Francisco Bay Area. A lot of the hospitals that I fought for and so proud of helping to maintain, this and that, we're now administrating these cocktails that I stand very firmly against. And now I'm a prepper up here in Northern Nevada. And, I was trying to figure out just how to be happy with my wife and our good friends and make a difference. And I had an epiphany watching Journey to Truth, their episodes with Tony Rodriguez, for example, on 20 and Backs and Laura Eisenhower and the work of the Farsight Institute. And I can name so many more. But really, and it's apropos since we met at the Rebels of Disclosure Conference by Journey to Truth podcast last year. I plan on going with this year, and I plan on going next year. Because this year's my first year. A lot of where it started for me was I went to Contact in the Desert last year. Okay. And that inspired me to reach out to people on the social media platforms who were talking about what the Journey to Truth folks were talking about: secret space programs, time travel, Montauk Project. And I first friended Sean Bond with my new Facebook account after when I was warning people from taking the cocktails. I had my first account of like 12 years and had everything going back to like my friends and family, first girlfriends, high school, college, all that got wiped. I was depressed for 2 years about that. And when I came back in, I thought, you know what? Well, at least I lose all the trolls and let me start my account and meet the exact people and communities I want to be part of. So the sword maker community was like the first community I wanted into. And then the more X-File community. I'm a huge X-Files fan. I even got to be a background extra on one episode back in the day. Yeah, just for fun. When I went to Occidental College in Los Angeles and I got a biochem degree, And while I was there, an XL fan, I saw that they had casting. You know, I was already out of school, and I got to do one episode. It's kind of fun. But yeah, I realized I have friended Sean Bond, okay, of psionicleague.com. And he's huge in this community. People in this community tend to be star seeds and light workers and maybe be psychic in different ways and have gifts and want to make a positive difference and are in touch with the earth and their higher self and are looking to join with the rest of their fellow star seeds. And once I friended Sean, it's like, what, boom, that opened the doors to friending anybody. And I saw James Rink had put out a call for a reunion tour for the 80th anniversary of the Philadelphia experiment. Okay, which would be entirely appropriate to the Montauk Project. The military code name, I said, is Project Phoenix. And they might have also had like Project Rainbow Bridge and related stuff. But that's what the TV show Stranger Things is all based on, but doesn't ever officially give credit to. And especially the survivors, who are the unsung heroes and victims, who should be recognized. And, you know, while Netflix is making gazillions of dollars and putting out garbage like Cuties, they're exploiting this legacy. And I just want to mention and get the people recognized, at least would be nice. You know, if you're not going to give any cold hard cash to those people, you know, that's a whole nother issue. You know, but that would be, you know, I'm not asking Netflix to do that now. I'm going after the powers that be who are running these secret access programs with taxpayer money to divert them into deep underground military bases, per Phil Schneider, or up into secret space programs, per Gary McKinnon, a hacker who discovered Solar Warden back in the day, and other secret space programs. Well, that was one he did, and there are many other people, Laura Eisenhower, Andrew Basiago, all those folks. And I had an epiphany around that period of time, about now almost 2 years ago. Humanity and I kind of already knew this deep down this whole time, we're never going, but I just didn't know how real it was. We're never going to achieve our collective Star Trek future unless we have the full truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly of ET contact, humanity's origins coming to Earth from other places with ET genetics. And that's why people are abducted into different programs in the whole spectrum of positively oriented and mostly, unfortunately, historically on Earth up to now, negative ET contact. Not all, but the vast majority of influences, unfortunately, till now. And this is where the movement comes in and humanity's part in kind of pushing that dung hill ball up the hill and over the edge, while we have our galactic brothers and sisters and the angelics and interdimensionals rooting for us, and then the Illuminati derp state cabal sellouts working for their negative reptilian. Not all reptiles are bad, and negative gray, not all grays are bad, you know, and demonic archonic overlords. And that's where we're at today.
So you believe that there are you know, other beings on our planet that are working with certain sects of the society to keep us, humanity overall, in a certain place, which I happen to agree with, but this could be newer information to some people. Can you expand on that a little bit and just kind of tell us?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally. So let me reference a lot of the people whose work I'm referencing. So I don't want anyone out there to get the impression this is like, oh, Brian, the SolarBee, he made this up. And this is like Brian's school of Kung Fu over here. And this is over there. What I like to do, and part of how I had this epiphany was around 2019. I figured out that, like, wait a second. My whole life, I kind of had put like fantasy over here and science fiction and stuff and reality over here, and like angels and demons and God and the devil were over here, and then like Star Trek and positive ETs and negative ETs were over here. And it wasn't until I realized, wait, they all exist together in the same universe, and they do actually interact and know of each other in many cases and all that. That blew my mind in 2019, right? And off of that, and I'd already been always like wanted to study and read into books and online about astral projection and reincarnation and the occult mysteries and good magic, white magic and black magic and to know about this stuff and what is all this stuff about. So she is a Chinese American immigrant whose father was so busy most of his youth, starting Sang Labs Inc., a company out of a basement, and really revolutionizing the computer graphics chip field in the 80s and 90s, but affording the wealth to then let me go to college, get a biochemistry degree, become a medical advocate, volunteer organizer, all the way up to the operations manager level for like 8 years straight, and then blow off some steam, go into something solar, working for Tesla for a while, and then escaping San Francisco, caught me up to there. And I discovered Dolores Cannon, right? So she talks about the three waves of volunteers or light workers who were answered the call to come to Earth at a time when Mother Earth and humanity, her primary species on their surface, are ascending from third to fourth to fifth density consciousness together. Okay. And you talk the negative forces, they want to hold that back because negative timelines are where humanity doesn't ascend in consciousness, become more telepathic and empathic and more of a brother and sisterhood, and make sure everyone's needs are met on this planet so that we can then link up stairs to the stars, our brothers and sisters waiting for us to work it all out and ascend and get it sorted out down here and elevate to that level, so we can kind of like reach them, right? And I could talk about levels of consciousness and density as far as I understand it, okay? And I can also talk about like timeline splits and things like that. And a lot of this is like Dolores Cannon talks about stuff like that specifically. Ashiana Dean, bringing the teachings of the Emerald Order. There's Christos Avatar now online doing a lot of this work. So it's not just, again, Ashiana Dean will tell you, it's not just me, Ashiana Dean. It's like I'm bringing you the Emerald Order teachings, I believe, and I don't want to misrepresent them either. And here's Christos Avatar doing the same, right? You got Rudolf Steiner. Many people have heard him talk about like the eighth sphere and these different levels of like matrix and illusion, but also spirituality ultimately through its anthroposophy. I always mess up the pronunciation. And so if you like, I could jump into just the consciousnesses, levels of consciousness densities, and then timeline splits, and then maybe jump into. I know you had some great questions, and I love questions too.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do that. And then really quickly too, before I don't know if you've seen our show before, but we'll also at one point do a break for a video. We have a friend that's a tarot reader, and we usually have her do a question in and around this, and then we'll give a response to it too. So we'll do that, but we'll talk a little bit more first, and then we'll do that.
Awesome. Whenever let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. So my understanding is like, and a lot of people, they ask this question, what do the ETs believe? Do they have a religion? My understanding is a lot of them, they will refer to it as, sure, the law of one. Okay. We're all part of one God source. And then each of us has an individual spark. We get chipped off the old block. And usually that's might be referred to as the shattering. That's what I call it, because how terrible it must be, or just to be able to step down so many levels. And so if that's the highest level, let's say that's like 10th density consciousness and above. First density consciousness would be down at the rocks and mud, dirt and crystal level. Okay. But there's at each level of density, now let's go from 1, we're going to work our way back to 10. I will try to make it quick. Okay. But each of those densities has a lower, a middle, and a high part of that density. Okay. So it's like, yeah, you could be in 7th density while we're down here in 3rd or 4th, but if you're in lower 7th density, that might not be like a very good thing. Okay. So just let's put some perspective on that.
That's true.
So lower first density would be like slime and yucky muck. Middle first density, like maybe, decent rocks with some minerals, And then crystals would be like higher first density, holding like a higher vibrational consciousness that transcends that density. Second density is like now like insects or bacterial life and like kind of nasty parasitic stuff might be the lower second density. And then I've got like your insects and creepy qualities, and then your animals, and then like your higher animals that start to transcend that, like dolphins and whales, right? And then now you got third level density. It's where humans are, right? We got like our kind of more monkey hominid mentality, and at the lower density, we're more like rapey, killy, hurdy, takey, steely. It's what I jokingly refer to like, I beat you over the head and take, right? Because like I got the bigger muscle or club or whatever. Second, I mean, the middle of your that third density is like your regular Joe or Jane, you know, they're an average person, neutral, right? The higher third is now where we're getting to empathic first, coming from the heart and telepathic and vibing, and you got that agape love and transcendent, right? Lower fourth density is great, you're telepathic, but you're a schmo. You go to the casinos, like cheat on blackjack, you know, or go to the nightclubs to like, you know, try to cast love psionics on people, like, and it's not cool, right? Middle fourth density would be like, sure, you're run of the mill, you're telepathic, you've got these gifts, you're empathic. You know, what you do is, right, there's that neutral ground. And then that higher fourth is more like now you've got that agape love, telepathy, empathy. Now we're getting into group mind consciousness, I believe, right? And then fifth density is like the lower, mid, and high, but now it's more group consciousnesses amongst group consciousnesses. And then you're probably sixth and higher, you're getting into like timelines and different dimensions and densities and parallel universes. And then seventh density is like the ability to like incorporate that and get out to different, you know, even further out and all of that. And so like I get lost anywhere above like, you know, seventh density. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. It's a little puny human here, but I think you all get the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this takes us to timeline splits. And I'm sure when we get into the Mandela effect, and this gets into the Montauk Project and all of it, is the timelines. There's basically essentially, I like to think that there's like 64 kind of generalized timelines, and 40 are like awesome, good timelines. Where like, you know, we're gonna have like Love and Light, Star Trek Future, or like Unicorns and Fairies, and like whatever version of that, the good timelines, great. And then 14 are like the nasty, like Terminator, Matrix, Mad Max timelines. Okay, they're not fun timelines, but even creator sorts might want to see how those play out, and maybe versions of us that lower vibrate or for a haha get put into those timelines too, right? Anything can be possible. But right now for humanity, the main split is it's going to be either a positive timeline or a negative timeline. And for the longest time up to now, we've had these two concurrent timelines basically piggybacking on the same kind of what's like it's upward spiral. Okay. But the one true Christed timeline, there's a certain point where we're getting this diversion now, where the Christed timeline is going to continue and spiral and make it up and outwards all the way up to like the heavens and to like that next universe up to transcend or density or dimension. Okay. Whereas that fake wannabe Metatronic false AI archonic transhumanist timeline, it's going to split, and instead of that time where it gets like make it up, it's going to fail, and it's going to spiral back down into nothingness, and like kind of be like an Ouroboros snake eating itself in its own tail. Okay, and so the baddies, right, the ones who the controllers, the Illuminati, the people running the Babylonian money magic system for like the last 26,000 years or whatnot, they're at the behest of their parasitic overlords are trying to lower our vibrational consciousness density so that we don't get on that higher timeline and ride it that one up, and we get stuck on this lower timeline as their slave playthings.
So,
and then this brings us to these experiments.
So let me ask you, when it comes to the Mandela effect,
Yes, Joe.
Yeah. So do you think that's evidence of alternative
Absolutely.
realities or say a parallel timeline? And then
100%.
do you think it's
100%. And I can
linked to,
explain.
but also do you think it's linked to the ancient occult and well, quantum theory?
Yes, yes. And Johnny Enoch and I were actually just discussing this before this conversation here, about how part of what we need to do today to help elevate the overall consciousness and vibration and frequency of humanity in this earth is to get the people right now who are still awake but understand and respect the language of science and get them to understand through the language of quantum entanglement, quantum physics, and like spooky physics at a distance, as Einstein put it, and Heisenberg was right. Okay, together with the keepers of ancient knowledge and wisdom who are credible and aren't just the airy fairy love and light, but no darkness or shadow work processing, alchemy. Okay, and bring the legitimate real people and bring them together. So we're bringing what was old is considered new and reigniting the classics in the hearts and the minds of the people so that they can have the discernment and ability to make informed decisions combined with the knowledge of the hidden secret space program stuff, the Mandela effect. And the Mandela effect, I can tell you that the people in these projects as time soldiers would go through doorways, time and space, into these timelines and do enough damage by doing negative time travel missions back then, like assassinating the grandfather of like a great person, or just a great person, or erase them from history, or their inventions and their writings and their art and influence, whatever way. Okay, they did it at the behest of the nasty people running these programs who were MK Ultra torturers, and we'll get to that. Okay, to basically mess with these timelines back then enough to then shift the main timeline that we're on now. And then that's where you see the Mandela effects, these quantum juxtapositions.
Interesting. Excuse me.
Wow.
So how does the Montauk Project weave into this?
So that's the main way they went about discovering how to affect time travel and altering time. And let me show my screen here. Okay. You had actually, after or in the middle of World War II, okay, and there may be some other tabs I should have opened up here. You had this gal named Maria Orsic, of something known as the Vril Society. She was a very psychically gifted, talented, beautiful German gal who lived in Germany before and during the rise of the mustached guy to power with his party. They're fascists. Okay. And so a lot of people, I think, and I was one of them because I didn't understand the historical context. They thought, like, did these ETs just pick like these folks and give it to them? No, what it seems like is just different places, countries had star seeds, and some of them were getting in tune and messages from different places. Maria was apparently getting telepathic communication from ETs in the star system Aldebaran. And they were telepathically giving her details and blueprints for how to make spaceships and time travel and anti-gravity craft. And she got swept up by the rising fascist party and those elements by the Tool Society and their more occult side, which is really not told about in mainstream history. They're the ones who are hunting around the earth for the Spear of Destiny, or going to Tibet to look for the entrance to inner earth and to find the city of Agartha, and they found it. Okay. Maria Orsic was kind of part of that whole occult thrust of the bad Germans. And they took her plans, and off of that, they did the Hanabu, their special UFOs. It's where you see, it's basically like a saucer craft with a Panzer turret on it. And then they also had Die Glocke, Hitler's bell. That's where all that came from. And towards the end of World War II, the bad Germans and the bad Italians and Japanese, they were losing by 1945, on at least in public. But the bad Germans behind the scenes, they were getting this technology, and they weren't ramping it up fast enough in time and developing it enough in time to turn the tide of the surface World War II. But they decided, well, let's just take this all to our secret base in New Schwabenland, base 211, down in Antarctica. Okay, and let's relocate everyone we can through Operation Paperclip, with the Office of Strategic Services that got renamed in the CIA, with that whole Wild Bill Donovan setup, transition from Uncle Joe to being like not Tommy Joe, and the Cold War. And so while it looked like the Cold War, it was a detente between Western capitalist USA in the West versus Soviet communist Russia and the Soviet bloc in the East. The cold hard reality is that was just a show. The real deal is that the bad Germans, they won World War II. And that's why you had the UFOs flying over Washington, D.C. Because what happened is when World War II ended and word got to the U.S. Navy and command that you had these bad Germans with flying saucers and stuff down in Antarctica, they said, what? And they sent down Operation High Jump. Okay, and Operation High Jump was basically a naval carrier group of like, I figure it's like 15,000 sailors went down there, and they got their asses beat. This is remote viewed by the Farsight Institute, blind remote view. Testimony of Admiral Byrd has emerged. Michael Sala has definitely researched this in exhaustion. Who did a great job of it. William Tompkins, who wrote Selected by Extraterrestrials and was part of these programs and developed a lot of the solar warded craft, has testified to all of this. And basically, the U.S. Naval Carrier Group didn't even make it down close to this supposed bad German base down in Antarctica. These UFOs emerged out of the water, shot laser beams and all sorts of stuff at them, sliced and diced their carrier group into little itty bitty pieces, and not many of them made it back to live to tell the tale. And so Operation High Jump got covered up. Why do you send out the end of World War II 15,000 sailors to do a research expedition, like super heavily armed with aircraft? That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And so the U.S., in order to catch up, that's where they did the Philadelphia experiment. They took a U.S. destroyer craft class ship, and they took a Tesla generator coil and stuck one on each end, aft and fore, of the USS Eldridge. Okay, and they fired it up at sea with sailors on board, and this was against and under protest from Tesla, and I forget who the other U.S. scientist was. They resigned from the project, and the Navy went ahead without them. And it was supposedly to achieve radar invisibility. Well, the reality is, yeah, it took them off the radar. It also took them totally off the map, optical, everything. They got warped in time and space. This is one of the things that Tesla technology can do. But mind you, these are like really rudimentary Tesla technology. I mean, imagine apes or chimpanzees messing around with like microwaves and stuff and zapping themselves and frying, people, their buddies in the process. It's not good. And they literally tore a hole in time and space. And while they were in subspace, the sailors on board, other than the two who were like in the main engine room, like in the dead center of the ship in some kind of shielded Faraday cage area, the other sailors, they were able to like move in and out of the material ship like they were kind of like in their astral bodies, or like ghosts, like their molecules. It didn't matter.
Oh wow.
However, when the two sailors in the center of the ship cut the power and they came out of subspace, those sailors who were still somehow intertwined with the ship, that's how they came out. And so I've been told by several people in these programs, survivors, that these are the real images. Like this one is black and white, is like some like cheesy reenactment. That's a real photo right here. These dudes died very painful, horrible deaths.
Wow.
And what happened is with that in 1943, okay, that's why last year, 2023, was the 80th anniversary. And the ship, they found that Earth and these time travel cycles, the natural time rhythm of Earth is apparently a 20-year cycle.
Hmm.
And that's where you get 20 and back programs, or 40 and 60 and back, or even 80 and back programs. Why, for the, at least at first, these were in 20-year increments, apparently. It was easiest to do them in 20-year cycles with time of Earth. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I co-assembled with James Rink and others the Montauk Adventure Tour, and having like a whole bunch of survivors of these projects. And I just right before, this was what led into the Montauk Project. Having them all together, that blew my mind. Okay. And so that brings us to Brookhaven National Labs.
Mhm.
The US decided, well, over here on Long Island of New York, right? You got to think about this here. Here's Philadelphia, where the Philadelphia experiment took place. Okay. And you're going to have a lot of money and power here concentrated on the East Coast, right? New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. area, Eastern Seaboard, right? And you're maybe going to have like a lot of your eggheads and scientists in this region. And if you're going to open up portals in time and space to places like the Upside Down or who knows where, do you want to have that right in the middle of downtown Manhattan? Probably not.
Mhm.
But you got out here, take the Jackie Robin Expressway, whatever, out to Brookhaven National Laboratory. Now you've got like these particle accelerator ring thing looking over here, and then a smaller one right here. Okay. Apparently, they decided to continue their shenanigans with this Tesla technology and up the game. They took something called it became known as a Montauk Trip Chair. Okay, and the Montauk Trip Chair was apparently, I'm told that the Roswell crash site, that UFO, they recovered wreckage, right? And one of the pieces of wreckage was one of the pilot chairs. Oh God, this is it shows me Montauk Trip Chair. It's giving me like
Yeah, beautiful chairs.
yeah, it's a beautiful chair, but no, the Montauk Trip Chair, what I've been told is it looked like a kid-sized kind of futuristic dental chair. And what they would do is, and this happened first at Brookhaven National Labs, and then later at Camp Hero. And that's where this picture right here of the Sage radar tower, that's at Camp Hero.
Mm.
They eventually first began experimenting, at that part of Long Island at Brookhaven in the center of Long Island. Okay, here, right here. But then they eventually moved out all the way out to the tippy tip of Long Island. Probably because you had Camp Hero here, which was a then abandoned World War II Army base, which has like all these sorts of underground bunkers and stuff. And that's like the Sage radar tower is like planted on top of one of these hills here. Okay. And then and this was a then sleepy fishing village, right? And it was relatively isolated and suited their purposes, because what they would do is they would send men in white vans or whatever literally into the city, inner city, find homeless people, and they found this worked best with kids, were the only ones who were really effective in the chair. And they would take them, abduct them, kidnap them at first, and they found later abducted them through all sorts of like talented and gifted programs in the grade schools and stuff. And then take these kids to the base, strap them into the chair, and then that's where kind of what you see depicted in Stranger Things. First, they show like Hawkins Laboratories. That's basically Brookhaven National Labs. And then they don't show you when they moved it over here. It's like what Arkeem Ra, a good friend of mine and a testifier and presenter at a conference this year, and think he's going to come back next year in 2025. Not shameless plug for my 2025 Full Disclosure Now conference. You know, he recalls what do you call it? Being, you know, strapped into the chair and being made to open up portals. And he calls it Montauk 1.0. It was messy. They were figuring things out. Most kids do not have the ability to open up portals. And what would happen is if you were a child, like a homeless runaway, like a 16-year-old that got picked up on the streets because they said, hey, kid, you want to have a good time? Like, here's some money, jump in the van, here's some alcohol. Next thing they know, they're strapped into a chair, and it got younger than 16, a lot younger. And if you didn't have that ability to open up a portal or manifest like something at that level, a lot of times, this is according to Arkeem Ra and other people, that kid died. And they went through literally thousands and thousands of kids to get probably a couple dozen who have that ability activated, at least at that point.
Wow.
And those kids were the ones that you see kind of more depicted in the TV show and Stranger Things is like 11, where they're sitting in a room and they're being made, okay, crush this can with your mind. Okay, cool. Okay, next, kill that cat with your mind. Not cool. You're not going to do it? Well, then we're going to hurt this kid next to you. Okay, you know, you're not going to do it, you know, and that's like, and it got nastier than that. Like what I've been told, is Stranger Things, Papa treated those kids with kid gloves compared to what the real treatment. Papa was probably a depiction of Dr. Green, who may have been Dr. Joseph Mengele, who escaped at the end of World War II.
Mhm.
Okay, whether I don't know whatever it says in the official history, everyone tells me that's him, and he's got his like genetics like spread out there either through clones or offspring somehow, and he was a big part of these programs, just like Werner von Braun.
Right.
Okay, you know, just side story. When I went to Occidental College, I had a, you know, you do getting my biochemistry degree. I, you know, you go to chemistry classes, right, and you go to chemistry lab. And we had Stockroom Bob. He was kind of like the older guy with like glasses. He was like an egghead back from the 50s. You know, he was like Stockroom Bob. He handled all the ingredients and reagents and glassware and all that for the Occidental College. And he was an amazing man. And he had stories about how back in the day he worked at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, I think in Tennessee. Working on with like Werner von Braun and other like German and other scientists on things like rocket fuel, and how he would joke how like, yeah, like just like the show, like in all the TV shows, they'd like have the starched white collar business shirt, you know, maybe like a black like thin tie, like the horned rim like glasses, and like the crew cut like Dilbert, and they'd be in like a bunkers chain smoking cigarettes, and they'd be like a guy sitting like with like an old school black and white TV screen monitor, and he'd have like joysticks, and on the screen it would be like robotic arms like manipulating like vats of fuel concoctions, like mixing up things. And he'd joke like, yeah, every now and then like the screen would just go black. And like the boys, you know, we were sitting down and the guys surrounding them, chain smoking the cigarettes, they'd look at each other like, oh, looks like we lost another batch. And he'd joke, they like climb up out of their bunker and look, and like over the hill, they'd see like a plume of black smoke. And that was like where like that automated robot was. Like that was like back in the day. And like he remembers like going to the supermarket, you know, and going literally like you'd go to like the meat section and there'd be Werner von Braun there. And look, there's Werner, you know, and Stockroom Bob, he understood the significance back then. I didn't understand it when I was getting my biochem degree back in 91 or whatever. You know, he understood the significance of joking about like getting steak dinner with like the Nazis. Pardon my French. Like you can blank that out, it's gonna go, you know, the bad Germans, you know.
Yeah.
You know, they're head people. And that Werner von Braun was also part of developing the secret space programs. And also
Interesting.
falsifying the moon footage.
Well,
Although we did go to the moon.
sorry to interrupt you. While you're talking about this subject, though, it's the perfect kind of segue
Yes.
for us to bring in the question
time.
that we did with Allison from YouTube's Tarot by Allison. Let's see. Can we share screen while he's got his share screen, or should we have?
Oh yeah, Here I was saying, let me stop my share.
Okay.
My bad. That's my bad habit is sharing the screen and forgetting to stop.
No, not
Please, by
a
all
problem
means.
at all. I just while you're talking about it, we had asked Allison a question, so we'll get your feedback after we watch this. Let's see.
Hi, everyone. Well, I love today's question on a number of levels. And this show really resonated with me as a person and as a psychic. So I can't wait to see what the answer is going to be. The question was, the television show Stranger Things is supposed to be a fictionalized version of the Montauk Project. Is this show meant to be a soft disclosure? So let's go ahead and see what the cards have to say. I have cleansed, shuffled, and asked for the strongest energies to come through in the cards. And let's see what they want to say. All right. I've got 2 of Wands. I have the 8 of Cups. I have the Page of Cups. And I have the Queen of Pentacles. Okay, so what I am getting is that yes, that it is. And I'll tell you why. So this is a very strange card for this. This is really about getting the energy of clarifying the intention. So this is really, I feel, whoever is doing the disclosure, let's say the government, that this is their opportunity to really clarify what they want to disclose. And they're doing it in a fictional manner. They're really trying to organize their thoughts by using characters, by using scenarios, and trying to get that information out there. We then have the 8 of Cups. This is a deep, dark, depressive type card. And that the underbelly of what they want to disclose is very dark. And with this, you can see that they are literally swirling around in this green mist of a deep, dark depression. Mm-hmm. Well, this could be the underbelly of Stranger Things when you have that upside down world. Look how dark this is. It's swirling. Mm-hmm. That's what we also saw when they would go underground. And that is exactly what they want to reveal, that there's an alternate universe, that there is something else that's going on. We have this Page of Cups. And in this deck, it's slightly different. What this is saying is that she's seen the world through rose-colored glasses. You see she's running through this dark forest. There's dangerous creatures there. She sees a spider web. She doesn't see it as having a dangerous, poisonous spider. What she sees is diamonds glistening on the spider web. And that's how they wanted to unroll and unveil that show to the general public, is that people are enjoying it for what it is, but really it's pretty dangerous, the stuff that they're showing and that they're rolling out, and all of that type of that energy. That, I mean, I'm just getting sorry, I'm having visuals from the show too, because I've seen it in addition to having downloads while I'm reading this, and I am just getting that they basically put really they put a positive spin on it when it's not positive, is what I am getting. Is that it's really a big deal, that it's very dark. I'm getting that that people are just really naive, and they're not seeing it for what it actually is. That's the vibration that's coming off of this card. And I have to say, because this is the Pollyanna card with rose-colored glasses, I'm just going to say one thing. Usually I don't want to talk about myself on this, but I have to say I'm calling in a lot of my past life powers as a psychic, and I'm also strengthening the ones that I currently have, in addition to getting new ones. And after I watched that series, I called in my psychic abilities because I wanted to be able to throw energy at people and watch them slam up against a wall, or I'm not saying I want to hurt people, I'm just saying that level of strength, and that I wanted to be able to have that psychic ability and that power to be able to stop something like that from coming in. And I know that sounds crazy and it might sound cartoonish, but I woke up the next day, and for the first 15 minutes of me being awake, I had purple vision, like this Pollyanna vision. I looked like I was looking through purple lenses for the first 15 minutes, and then it went away. And I've been experiencing an increase in psychic power. So I personally believe that this is true. And I don't know that much about the Montauk Project. I should, I'm sure, but I don't. So I'm coming from a different perspective. So anyways, I just want to say that this is a really powerful and strong energy, and I feel that it's coming through. And I feel that we're going to have to be going up against a few things. I do feel the last card is the Queen of Pentacles. And what that card is telling me is that in the end, I do believe that good is going to rule out over evil. And I do believe that there's a lot of us that are calling in these psychic powers, these psychic abilities. We're calling in, you can say, supernatural powers, you know, these superhuman powers, and we will be able to step up and fight that. And it's going to be in a loving vibration. We have to have that. We all have both, the dark and the light, or you could say the light and the shadow. But I do feel in the end we win. It's going to be very intense. I'm not going to kid you. Anyways, I think I got a little sidetracked on that, but is it meant for soft disclosure? I'm just saying flat out yes, and this is what it's going to be. So that's how it's going to be revealed. But in the end, I'm getting that we win, but it's through a loving, open heart vibration. And that always seems to be central to everything, is the heart. Okay, well, that's what I have for you today. The cards have spoken. Bye, Lisa, Emma, Johnny, and Brian.
Well, that was very interesting. What did you think about that?
That was amazing. What's her name?
Allison.
Allison, yeah.
Allison. Wow. I would say she's more right than she knows. Okay. So because this is where we get into this idea of soft versus hard disclosure, right? Hard disclosure, they just spill the beans and say it. Soft disclosure, they're revealing it through fiction and fantasy. But you know, in my opinion, the creators like Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, he did it because he sat in on channeling sessions of a telepath getting information back in like the 50s or 60s in Berkeley, California area. And then off of that, they gave him the prime directive and told him about the Galactic Federation type setup, and said, you know, got to let humanity know that there's both positive and negative ETs, and here you go. And I believe that soft disclosure, because like they dressed it as science fiction, you know, but it was good soft disclosure. This soft disclosure of Stranger Things, just like everything her reading showed, the rose-colored glasses and the dark underbelly and the green miasma mist that they're kind of dancing around in, while it's like the people behind the scenes giving us a soft disclosure. It's like they're sitting there with like a bunch of twigs and they got two sticks in their hand trying to figure out how to make it do something. You know, the reason why is because they gave us disclosure of like, hey, time travel is real, and yeah, it can be abused, and yeah, sometimes children are involved by these shady government and corporate and, you know, sciencey programs, but you know, that's really all part of this manipulated 80s fantasy. Then they give you this sci-fi stuff, and then they divert you on the Steven Spielberg, you know, ET kids riding around on their dirt bikes and like 80s pop music, and they really make it nostalgic. And now it's about these kids and, you know, the upside down in their own little drama, you know, which yeah, it affects the rest of the world, but it's kind of like all the drama is there, and it's a great TV show. Okay, what
Yeah,
they're really distracted.
Yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Emma.
I was just thinking because I remember watching Stranger Things too, and I only watched the first 2 seasons, but I was like, huh, that's kind
Oh,
of
they're good.
Yeah, it was really interesting, but I just thought it was I just thought it was interesting how, like, they talk about like the upside down, and they were essentially opening up these portals and these underground labs and everything, keeping everything hush hush. But it was people starting to get exposed to these lower density beings like the Demigorgon. And I can't remember what that shadow creature was that they kept
The
seeing.
Hydra thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That-
And I was just thinking, kind of going back to the whole timeline thing, though, if they're doing these experimentations to create this negative timeline to keep everybody on a lower vibrational level, wouldn't that also negatively impact them as well, though? Because they're on that same timeline, right?
Well, see, it's a matter of perspective, because if in their mind, the rulers or the would-be rulers, by manipulating us into a negative timeline, yeah, it's negative and lower for you and I, Joe and Jane Sixpack, but because they're part of the elite and they get to rule overall, well, then they're going to get access to all the fancy time travel and medical bed technology, and they'll get to look like they're 27 forever, right? While the rest of us can be their slaves. So, yeah, that timeline sucks for you and I, but from their perspective, they're like, oh, well, for us, that's okay. I'm on top of that heap.
Rule in hell
It's a
or
really
serve in heaven?
narrow-minded way.
Yeah.
What's that? Was that
He
John?
said you be a rule in hell or you serve in heaven.
There you go. Exactly. It's that kind of thinking, and it's ultimately short-sighted, narrow-minded, parasitic. And what it is, it's kind of like it's going to be the jokes on them from a universal law, God source point of view. Because if they want to continue to be negative, lower energy vibration and be wolves among sheep and lions, the next incarnation, Rion de Rouen of Team Light, also a fellow friend and presenter, says it perfectly. Okay. Then next time, yeah, they're going to get reincarnated as wolves, but next to other wolves and worse. And they're going to see you guys want to be wolves. Like, here you go. That's like, and they get to learn the karmic lessons. And that's the law of one, too. It's like some of us are trying to climb that ladder back up through the densities of consciousness faster and more directly. And I would say that's more service to other orientation and agape love and Christ consciousness. And then others are just me. I want to be at the head of the line because I'm better than you, whatever. And yeah, they're going to make it back up law of one, but they're just taking kind of the more longer route. That's service to self.
So with that, your take on the idea that, our reality right now is an illusion. And so do you
I
think
guess it's an illusion. I don't want to say our reality is an illusion.
well, yeah, well, it's an illusion. The fact that they're shielding what their true nature of what is really happening.
I see. Okay, I see what you're saying. We're
how are
being
they
presented a
shielding it?
manipulated.
Exactly.
We're being presented a manipulated version, because while they're showing us kids in Fantasyland with one gal L, right? And they're giving us this is like a whitewash version. Okay, there's also the same version similar to what Preston Nichols and Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron fed to Peter Moon, the author who wrote the Montauk Chronicles book series. Okay, what they're leaving out is they're not just opening up portals the upside down, and they're not just using like 1 to 11 kids. They're using 1 to 11,000 kids. And they're opening up portals to bad timelines to kill like your uncle, who like literally this was a time travel mission that Arkeem remembers. And he called this part of Project Phoenix. Okay. And what it was is they had monarch programming where there was some person back in Renaissance Italy who was like a combination of like Leonardo da Vinci and Nikola Tesla. And this person would have given us, it was either anti-gravity or free energy or time travel, or maybe all three, because all three, they're all interrelated. And the mission was to go back in time and to erase him from our history. So there were time soldiers, and Arkeem was one of the people who was in charge of people who went back to mess with this guy's life over different periods of his time. Think the Adjustment Bureau, like on steroids, okay? And even himself eventually to snuff this guy out at the end of his life. But throughout his life, what that you would do as a time soldier is like, let's say you're an MK Ultra victim and you're implanted with Manchurian candidate programming. You're programmed and taught how to, and they could do that with a Montauk trip share. They could like give you information and knowledge and program people and control people. You've got, you know how to speak decent Renaissance Italian and blend in with the locals. And you're going to live next to this guy for like the next however many years, doesn't matter, like years, could be your whole life. And, you know, you're going to befriend him. And, you know, if he's on the verge of his experiment being successful, you're going to knock the right piece of equipment down and make sure it breaks or goes missing. Okay. Or some famous poet or author or writer is coming through Renaissance Italy and he was going to meet you and see his amazing workshop and put this guy on the map. You know, you're going to make sure that meeting never happens. Okay. And they would put people into this dude's life. And Arkin says it's really sad. It makes him cry because they effed this guy over so bad. He was such a cool, nice grandpa, inventor, genius person who wanted to help. And just how defeated he was towards the end. Okay. And Arkin remembers coming through a portal from Camp Hero, from home base HQ, going through the portal, saying to someone, hey, your mission's over. Like, you know, like basically they'd already erased the guy from history, right? And these time soldiers, like, they might have been there for like 20, 30 years. Time travel, time don't matter. Doesn't matter. Lifetime missions, they don't care. Okay. And they kind of depict this in Black Mirror in a virtual reality way. Like they're punishing people by like making them endure simulations of like millions of years at a time, even though it's like 5 minutes of like linear time to us. It's like, that's like time travel. They don't care. They can just stick you over here, turn the dial, don't matter. They don't care. Okay. And so imagine you're in Renaissance Italy, and yeah, every now and then you're sabotaging this dude's work. But meanwhile, you've met a beautiful Italian gal. You raised a family. You're a grandfather now. And then Arkim Ra steps through the portal, and his alter, Jacob, I think was one of them, and says, you're coming back with me, soldier. Your mission's over. And you're like, huh? What? No. Either they're like, huh, no. And they're like, who are you? Because I didn't remember, right? They're programming. Or they remembered and they didn't want to go back. Hey, puppies, hush, hush. You know, they've got like, you know, you've got time travel. Why don't you come back for me at the end of my life and let me enjoy some decent Italian food instead of being hosed down in a cold cage, naked, being fed dog chow, maybe, right? And they would literally fight Arkim to the death. And even if, he, because of the psionic powers and abilities that were activated then, not now in his current, you know, I don't want people running to Arkim and be like, hey, force choke me, dude. Okay, but he would literally have like psionic or psychic or mental or even telekinetic battles with people because they had super soldier training. Fight them, and if they died, he could still bring them back. They have something called a regeneration tank. They could regenerate you as long as they had like your head and they got to you within 24 hours to a max of 3 days. Like I hear later on, they got to like extend it out a little bit. They could regenerate you and bring you back. And that was part of the programming is they would kill you, bring you back, and then say, do you remember that I killed you? And you would have to tell them that you remembered who they were, how they killed you, all the nasty stuff. And the reason why is because it made it so that if another program captured you and then they killed you and regenerated you and tried to reprogram you, you were already had been through that and you already remembered all your stuff and it didn't work. That's how nasty these people. Yeah.
That's he was at the conference too. We didn't get to speak to him too much on that either. We're getting close to our time here too. So before, just to kind of wrap up this thought process. So with all of this going on right now in the world and everything, where do you see us at right now, and where do you think this is potentially going for humanity and for our survival with these kind of I don't even want to call them people, I guess, entities that are kind of working so diligently to stop us from being able to kind of move through this? Where are we and where are we going?
Yeah, that's an awesome, that's a perfect question to summarize here. Yeah, it's like, where do we go from here? Well, I think all the timelines get to play out. We get to decide which timeline we're on. The good news is that there's counterbalances. Just as there's always been this darkness pushing, manipulating, they're failing. Okay. And it's up to us to decide if we want to be in the higher timeline. Okay. Instead of them making that final push and succeeding, think of like that pendulum where it's like they've got that pendulum all the way up and they try to get over the hill, and now it's swinging back at them no matter what. They're getting swung back on. That's what's happening now. That's where you're seeing all these mass resignations of CEOs and P. Diddy getting rounded up with, and that's going to expose the rest of the Hollywood, just like the island stuff. That didn't go away. It's going to come back around. And people wearing tracking bracelets. I mean, John McCain was literally had a reporter say, "Hey, John, I thought you were injured your leg. I know you've been wearing that ankle brace or leg brace for the whole time on your left leg. Now I can't help but notice you're wearing it on your right leg today." And John McCain literally says to the reporter, like, "Yeah, I got tired of wearing it on that leg. I decided to give it a rest and swap legs." You don't switch your bad leg brace on your because you got your bad leg to your right. So anyway, that is happening, and it's the fact that more of us are coming out and being able to have these testimonies of our colleagues or actual testifiers just come directly onto your show and say what they're saying. Yes, you're being targeted, but it seems like the targeting, it's less and less. The whistleblowers, a lot less, are being rounded up and disappeared and given ultimatums. They're maybe getting voice to skull harassed and getting microwave beamed at them every now and then, or maybe like low level harassment, like crank calls and stuff, but it ain't the same. And dawning of the age of Aquarius, we're entering the new era coming after 2012, the Mayan calendar, the Hopi Indians. We're the people that we prophesied. And so really it's on us and the work that we do. This show is absolutely part of that, to spread the light, the knowledge, the wisdom, the learning, alchemize, transmute the darkness, make the gains, help humanity from an informed and wise standpoint, make a collective decision of where we want to go from here.
And Brian, do you think that some of the lessons from, say, the ancient, like, say, I don't know, witchcraft or occult, can help us navigate today's spiritual environment? It is
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give you an example. Right now, there's this really harmful dichotomy that I would say personally, as a believer, in what is known as Christianity today. Okay, because unfortunately the Bible has been so twisted, and a Mandela effect is, go to your Bible, look at Ezekiel, it's either 6:11 or 11:6, I think, where it used to say in your Bible, your print Bible now, on your bookshelf, where it used to say the lion shall lay down with the lamb, it now says the wolf shall lay down with the lamb. Okay, that's a quantum effect. Okay.
I remember those pictures of the lion and the lamb growing up.
Yeah,
I remember seeing them in art and stuff. It was always a lion and a lamb. It wasn't a wolf.
Right. And so, John, what's your question again, real quick? There, you're asking about
like from the ancient,
yes, ancient wisdom.
Learn to navigate today's spiritual landscape.
Thank you. Sorry, that brings back. Yes. So the other side is trying to manipulate and mask and distort and invert the ancient wisdom. But I would say, a lot of people may not know this, but my understanding is that Christ, Yeshua, the 32 years that we're missing, his missing youth, unknown to history, before he went about his ministry, around Galilee and all that. He may have had his father, or his biological Joseph, take him to where the three wise men came from, which is the East. And I believe that was like Asia, India, and Egypt area, like Middle East. And he got to learn a lot of these ancient arts, mystical arts and knowledge, like how to hum and sing and intone to get your physical body at a higher frequency and in conjunction with the heavenly frequencies, and how to maybe do astral projection and meditation. And then to him, walking on water at that time he's saying, hey, Peter, don't be so afraid. Come on out, and because to him, it wasn't anything. Well, where do you think that came from? And so I think that it's a re-understanding of in modern day, and I know I'll have people say, oh, tarot reading, that's witchcraft, this and this and that. I'll say, wait a second, Yahshua told us, that we would do miracles and visions, dreams and see visions and speak prophecies and heal and do all of these great works many times over, greater than he. And that's our job. Okay. And like when, was it Kimberly or I'm sorry, what was her name again?
Allison she's from
Allison.
YouTube's Tarot by Allison. Yeah.
There you go.
And
I got to
Kimberly
reach out to her. Yeah. So please put Allison in touch with, or me in touch with her. Like that work, I think anyone using their discernment would see she did a great job. I don't see that as demonic. Like, how could you?
Right.
And the other side, what I would argue rather, is the other side that's been manipulating what our sense of or version of reality is. We think it like, we came from dinosaurs died and then like we came from monkeys, right? Cat Williams says, well, why are there still monkeys?
Yeah.
But the deal is that we need to reframe a lot of this, and by bringing back the ancient wisdom and showing that it's really consistent with what we think is modern day knowledge, and reconciling the two. Because the other side, they were hiding this stuff for themselves. They were hoarding. They're doing tarot readings. They're doing psychic readings. They're doing astral projection. They're doing healing by laying on of hands or perverting it, casting curses, and all sorts of like black magic stuff. Why can't people learn how to dream dreams and keep a dream journal? Like, if you think that's satanic, well, then that's too bad for you. I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm in disagreement. I think that we need to use all these positive tools that have been kept from us. A lot of this is ancient wisdom, and to move forward into the future together.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's a really good
Back to our roots.
place to kind of wrap this up. So in the end, basically we have an option with free will to kind of choose the timeline that we want to be on, and recognizing with your conference that full disclosure is important because it helps everyone to see exactly what it is we're dealing with, so you can make an informed decision about where we are and where you want yourself to be.
I hope you can make it down to Florida, St. Pete Beach next July, August 15th to 18th. Then there's a free beach weekend, day of being 5.0, that Friday and Saturday. And so we're recommending everyone get the conference discount, stay at the Serrata Beach Resort, 2 queen beds each suite. And so you guys can probably fit there pretty easily. And stay for the day of being beach weekend, and then network, make all the contacts, and work together with everyone to grow and grow and grow and broaden and expand to all the people who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Please check out my website at fulldisclosuremovement.org, and perhaps you all might want to be like a live streaming presence, like at our event, and we can figure out how to incorporate deep dives in the desert into the event in such a way that you're also more on the radar of our broader community too.
Thank you. Yeah, we would love to do that. I've always wanted to go to Florida. I was looking at you guys' pictures this year, and I was commenting on it. I was like, oh my gosh, we've got to get there. We've got to do that.
Can I share my let me share my screen real quick. I definitely want to show this because I commented about this before. I've never seen so many people after a conference, especially like the presenters, give basically recaps on YouTube and all their podcasts and shows on the conference. And the way that you find it, because I was like, I was really curious, is you go to YouTube, for example, and you type in 2024 Full Disclosure Now Conference into the search, and then you have to go to your search filters. And if you go by upload date, okay, so that'll make it the most recent, basically. And look at all these recaps of the event that, I mean, I've been on a few, and invited on a few, but a lot of people, they went and they did their own.
Wow.
And some of these are spotlights. Some of these are spotlights, but here's like this is recap. Miles Johnston did an amazing recap. Audrey Walters, here's her recap. Rion de Rouen. Yeah, all sorts of people. Nate Gray did a mini thing here. Arkeem Ra, Robert Khalil, the Typical Skeptic podcast, Matthew Mornian, and then I've done a few episodes, but it's been really amazing, and it just shows you how excited people were, not just for this year, but how much you're looking forward to next year. So how much of a even bigger attendance and presence we'll have.
Yeah, it looks like it was an amazing conference, and there were so many people that were there that were talking about it, and I was seeing some of the videos. It looked like they were having a lot of fun even afterwards on the beach, and around, sitting around in the hotel and everything. So looks like a great event, and something that's definitely in a beautiful, beautiful place. And they were even just talking about the ocean itself and the water and everything else.
It's healing.
Yeah.
It is so healing. Apparently St. Pete Beach is 99% like plus just pure white quartz or quartz crystal sand.
Wow.
And so that has a real healing energy combined with the water. And that water is so warm. Yeah, you can swim in it at night. The only time you get out is you get cold is when you get out at night and you need a towel. Otherwise it's like not a problem.
Yeah, we will definitely put that on our radar to try to get there this next year.
Awesome.
I would love to do something like that. So will Winnie be there?
Yes, of course. Winnie the Wonder Dog will absolutely
The
be
star of
there.
the show.
Count us in.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. She'll remember you.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your information. And I think anybody that's watching this will have learned something today for sure.
Yeah, and one thing we heard and we thought it really resonated, and it made me think of you as I was watching some of your interviews. The one frequency higher than love is authenticity, and the authenticity that you come and you put forward, I think it is amazing, and I think it really will impact a lot of people, and God bless and future success with all that, with everything, because I think we need that.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I feel very protected. As long as I stay on the path and I do my job, I feel pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure meeting you too. You're such a wealth of knowledge. And like I said, I'm kind of early on in my journey too. So I appreciate you coming on, and I learned so much. I know I'm definitely gonna have to watch this back and take more notes. I love doing that.
Oh.
But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Emma. I mean, anytime you all would like to have me back, just let me know. Send me a message. We'll go from there.
Yeah, that'll be great.
We'll definitely have you back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching today. And I hope that you will also consider going to his Full Disclosure Now next year. And it's fulldisclosurenow.org. Is that correct?
Close. It's fulldisclosuremovement.org. Because in addition to the conferences, we're going to have a lot of other things coming off of that conference for the movement, but that's the kind of the catch-all. So it's where the conferences are, right there on the landing site. But yeah, it'll be different. It's just a work in progress. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
We'll see everybody next time. Yeah, please like and subscribe and share this if you can. Oh.